The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I'm so happy to be joined by the host of the award-winning program Sun Prairie News. You see it right here all the time. His name is Dan Presser. Sir, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been begging for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you finally allowed me to be on the show.
Well, you know, you were so kind to allow me to pop in on your show from time to time.
We miss you.
It's about time we got you over here.
Well, we'll have you back on the show as often as we can.
Okay.
So, there's always great movies to review, as you know.
Yeah, that there are. So this week we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of movies because that's what we do every week. I'm going to go ahead and get us started on what we have this week on the marquee. First off, we have a film called Free Guy. This is from director Shawn Levy. Stars Ryan Reynolds as the titular Guy. Guy is, he's a guy who's living in a violent video game, only he doesn't know it. Think Grand Theft Auto style game where just everyone's running around killing people. Every day is the same for him because he is a non-playable character, an NPC. Guy who's just there to be thrown around, abused, shot at, killed, to gain points. He and his fellow NPCs are just fodder for the actual players of the game, but they don't know that. He goes about his life with his buddy, dutifully named Buddy, played by Laurel Howery, until one day he sees the woman of his dreams. The problem is she's an avatar for one of the players in the real world. So long story short, he is made aware that this is a video game world and that he needs to rack up points to get her attention. And that kind of gets the story going. He goes about it by doing things for people in this crazy, violent universe that are good, which is very strange for this type of world. Look, I mean, you see, he gets just abused. Meanwhile, we also have a secondary story in the real world of this, where you have Keys, who is a programmer played by Joe Keery. He's a programmer for a man named Antoine, played by Taika Waititi. He is an insane boss. Keys and his former partner, Millie, played by Jodie Comer, suspect that Antoine stole the code to a game that they made years ago, and that he used their stolen code to create his game. Millie's inside the video game world trying to find evidence of all this. Keys is doing what he can on the outside of the world. But Dan, the movie is really Guy's journey, right? He's trying to
this story
be someone who he isn't.
It's all about Guy, really. I mean, in fact, the whole movie is a Ryan Reynolds. You know, it's a vehicle for Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. Obviously, that's why you go to see this movie.
Right.
And I feel like I was at a bit of a disadvantage because I'm not a gamer. I don't know if you were a gamer growing up, but my kids were a gamer. So kind of going in right away, I was like, what's going on? I kind of knew what was going on just because I had read the synopsis. But I went into it thinking, okay, what's happening? And it seemed kind of phony at first. And I was like, well, okay, now it makes sense. He's in the game. He is part of the game. And obviously, Ryan Reynolds has that kind of panache, that charm, that he can walk that fine line between, corny and superhero-ish, and he just pulls that off so well. So I think that's what really makes this movie. And there's some other great performances as well in this movie, I thought.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. He walks that impossible line of making you believe he could be just a regular guy when he is so far from a regular guy. And I mean, just everything that he carries about him, and his charisma and his charm and his wit and his looks, everything. But he manages to make you feel like, yes, in one moment I'm just a regular Joe, and the next moment I'm a superhero. Right,
and you said it the day we saw the movie, because we saw the movie together, and he's also got the build of a superhero, but he's a regular guy.
Right.
As the movie
He's
suggests.
Blue Shirt Guy.
He's Blue Shirt Guy, and I thought some of the best scenes in the movie were where he and his buddy were, like you saw a little clip of it there, where he and his buddy were on the floor during one of the bank robberies, and they're just chatting as all of the chaos
several times a day.
Every day, and it's just, the comedy between those two was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah.
That was one of the better moments in the film, and I also thought that Molotov Girl, or Millie, also had a great performance.
Yeah.
I thought, I hadn't seen her in a role like that before, so I thought that Jodie Comer really did a nice job with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole cast did really well. I like Joe Keery from Stranger Things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I liked him as Keys in here. And Taika Waititi as Antoine the boss. Taika Waititi is one of my favorite people in the world. Like, he's a director that I love, and I think he's just hilarious because he's off the wall.
Yeah.
And he plays this Antoine character so over the top that for a lot of people it would be almost too much.
It was a caricature, kind of a caricature.
But but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
He's kind of super villain-esque. And I enjoyed it. And I think that they did a good job of balancing two worlds and two stories and making me kind of care.
I agree. And there was also times in the movie where I might have started to get a little bit like, okay, this is lasting a little bit too long at certain points, but then there'd be a zinger. There'd be a good comedy moment, some good comedy writing in there that just kind of pulled you back in. I wish I could think of one right now, but you're going to have to go see the movie really to get that. But some of those moments really pull you back in and it gets the movie rolling again. Because at times, to me, it bogged down a little bit just because, again, I don't do a lot of video gaming. And I think a lot of the inside jokes were aimed at video games.
It was pretty heavy at points on those.
Yeah.
What's funny, too, is this movie was originally scheduled to come out last July. I remember seeing the first trailer for this during the Super Bowl 2 Super Bowls ago. And, of course, due to the pandemic, it was delayed 3 or 4 times.
Right.
It kept getting pushed like every 3-4 months. Push it out, because they didn't want this to be a streaming film. They wanted this to be on the big screen. And so one of the things, unfortunately, that kind of marks that is we cut to a sequence where we're watching Jeopardy, and there's Alex Trebek hosting Jeopardy. I was like, oh, man, you guys.
That was jarring. Both of us kind of, I could feel the tension right there. Oh, it's Alex Trebek, and he's not with us any longer.
No.
But there was actually, I was looking through the cast, and you probably know this already, but there was a lot of famous voices used in this as well.
A lot of big YouTubers, too.
Oh, I suppose, right? But you got guys like Hugh Jackman, Dwayne Johnson, Tina Fey, John Krasinski in this. So all of their voices are in it at certain times. I didn't recognize all of them.
Either. I noticed so I end up seeing this twice.
Yeah.
And I noticed the second time, as the credits were rolling, I see Dwayne Johnson's name go by, and I was like, Dwayne? That can't be the same one.
He was a bank robber.
I looked it up. I was like, sure enough.
I know.
What a great role.
That's what's great about those kind of, about animation and computer-generated stuff is you can use anybody.
Well, and Dwayne Johnson needs work. The guy's struggling for jobs.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
One other person I wanted to mention that was actually, it was a caricature character. He was a gamer at home, and that was one of the funniest moments. His name was Matty Carteropole or something. I don't even know his name. Keith, the 22-year-old guy sitting at home.
Is he the one who played Channing Tatum's?
Yes.
Real person? Because Channing Tatum was the guy who had the special thing that they were in his house trying to get from him.
Yes, that's him.
Yeah.
He was at home in his mom's house and yelling at his mom in the background all the time. That was a good comedy moment, I thought.
Don't touch that sock.
Right.
Yeah, he was pretty good. I like him a lot. All right, what did you end up giving Free Guy, sir?
Well, the day of, I would have maybe given it a 3. I ended up at a 3.5. And maybe a 3.5 minus.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. Like I said, I ended up going to see it twice in like a 3-day span.
Okay.
I don't know. It kind of hung with me. I enjoyed it. And I ended up giving it 4 stars, 4 out of 5.
I
mean,
loved it.
We both recommend it. Go check it out.
Definitely go see it. And the other movie that we saw was a lot of fun too. It's one of those movies, I think I liked it a little bit more than you, and it was Respect, the story of Aretha Franklin. And that's the next one that we reviewed. And it catches up with Aretha Franklin when she's about 10 years old, and it carries her career till she's about, in 1972 when she's making the Amazing Grace gospel album at, the New Temple Missionary Baptist Church in LA. And it's one of those movies, as you follow her life, our first scene of her is she gets pulled out of bed by her father, who's played by Forrest Whitaker. I believe his name is C.J. Franklin?
C.J. Franklin,
C.J. Franklin, a very famous preacher.
C.L. Franklin.
C.L. Franklin in the Chicago area. And he pulls her out of bed to go sing at this party. And he walks her through, and then she goes out and she sings, and as she's walking through this party, she sees all of these famous people. It kind of reminded me of one of those paintings where you have Elvis and Marilyn Monroe and all of those.
Scene.
The diner scene, or Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where she goes through, Betty Davis. I'm really dating myself. Betty Davis goes through, and you see all these famous people. That's what that felt like to me a little bit, and it was kind of like a little bit corny to me.
A little heavy-handed, I thought.
A little heavy-handed because, suddenly, there's Sam Cooke, and there's...
And they all had to
Smokey
say their
Rob.
names?
They had to say their
Sam
names.
Cooke.
Yeah, hi, Sam Cooke. Hi, Dinah Washington,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. But it was cool. It was a nice setup. And then from there, we see her progress from a gospel singing singer in her dad's church choir to someone who goes to New York with the urging of her father as her manager and becomes a standard singer. And she really hasn't found herself until she meets Jerry Wexler, the famous music producer, and which is played by, Jerry Wexler was played by, I'm always forgetting these guys. Mark Maron, who was excellent. I thought he really did a great job at that. And then she goes down to the famous Muscle Shoals recording studio in Alabama, which is, if you're a music person, Muscle Shoals is like the be-all, end-all.
I loved that moment where we kind of got to see a little bit of the genius that was Muscle Shoals.
Absolutely.
The standard band. And just.
I agree with you. I thought those were when the movie shined. When it got to Muscle Shoals, and we're seeing some of that just for a brief, quick second right there, when they're kind of creating the music. And you know what? It's a musical biopic. And it kind of follows that typical musical biopic formula where, she goes through this rough upbringing. She actually had kind of a well-to-do upbringing, but then she was also abused and had some terrible moments in her life, lost her mother very young, her parents were divorced. There's a lot of personal turmoil that she goes through, and she has a drinking problem, but she gets the Muscle Shoals, and she really discovers herself working with these fantastic musicians who are blues musicians, soul musicians. They know how to play. The
best at what they do.
The best at what they do, and they kind of show her creative process along the way. That's when the movie really hummed to me, and also just kind of that familial bond she had with her sisters singing in that.
Yeah.
And you can hear it in the music. I went out, of course, after the movie, I said I could watch that movie again because the soundtrack is obviously excellent. It's Aretha Franklin, and if you love Aretha Franklin, you're going to love this movie because there is a lot of music in this movie. It kind of played to me a little bit like a musical, and I guess that kind of makes sense because the director is Liesl Tommy, who is a Broadway director, and this was her first whack at a movie. And I think Jennifer Hudson, again, another vehicle movie.
Yeah, I mean Jennifer Hudson. I mean, I don't know who else you're going to get to do Aretha these days.
Well, Aretha Franklin, I've heard, picked her. She handpicked her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who else could do that?
Right.
And I think one of the good things that happens in this movie, too, is that Jennifer Hudson is such an excellent singer and such a great performer and artist. And she didn't really, yes, she is Aretha Franklin, but she doesn't try to sing like Aretha Franklin, but she embodies Aretha Franklin's spirit, I think. And that moves this movie along, and it makes it, I think, a pretty good film, especially, again, if you like that genre, the musical biopic, and if you like Aretha Franklin music. Were there problems with it? Yeah, there are some problems with it, as there are always problems with these type of movies. They bill it as a true story. Well, it's a true story loosely based on some of the facts in certain parts. And if you start delving into the things that happen in the movie, some of them are not. It's not a documentary, folks.
Yeah.
It's a movie about
creative license.
Yeah. But it is a great story.
I kind of wanted more out of this, though.
Yeah.
I was left wanting. I thought Jennifer Hudson was great. Forrest Whitaker's great at what he does.
Always.
Mark Maron was great. Yeah. I did think that Marlon Wayans was the one weak link in there. I didn't fully believe his dramatic performance.
Agreed.
When I walked out, I don't know if you've ever seen Lady Sings the Blues about Billie Holiday, right? I felt like he had watched that and said, I'm just going to try and do my best Billy D. Williams impersonation from that movie.
Yeah.
And I thought he was the weak link in all that.
And just to stop you for a second, that was another weak link in the storytelling was, so we have that moment at the beginning where she walks through and all these guys are saying their names, and then we're introduced to Ted White, that character. We have no idea who he is.
We're supposed to know, because he's got this backstory, and her dad hates him immediately, and they're talking like we've had a long history together.
And we have no idea who he is.
Never informed on it.
Right.
Yeah, that felt weird to me. It felt a little underserved. I think that we spent a lot of time showing us her flaws, showing us her demons.
Yep.
That feels like a huge chunk of the movie, and I thought that at points it kind of bogged down the movie in the middle.
I agree with you.
It's an hour 40. Can we get to her hitting some success here. Like this is, and that was one of the things that was driving me nuts. And obviously we see that so much of her issues, that she had toxic and traumatic relationships with men in her life from an early age. And it felt like almost every man in her life
you were just waiting for
was
something
just horrible
bad to happen.
and led her to the bottle, or forced her to the bottle, which only spiraled things. And I don't know. It was weird. Like I enjoyed the movie, but I felt like it was in the closing credits when they cut to actual Aretha singing, and we see real Aretha, where I was inspired by her all of a sudden again. And I was like, oh man, yeah, this is it.
I have to admit, I agree with you on that. Typically, I mean, that's such a trope for musical biopics. You go back to the actual performer at the end of, you kind of expect it. So it's kind of, what was that movie from a few years ago that John Sullivan was in, Dewey Cox? Or, They kind of make fun of a lot of those things in those movies, and they do that at the end. But I have to admit, I was kind of tearing up a little bit during that last scene.
I was too.
It was very emotional because you're watching the actual Aretha Franklin just do it.
Oh,
and
I was
she's
getting
still
chills in that.
Goosebumps through that whole scene. And there was another scene actually when Jennifer Hudson sang. I thought it was, it was the scene in Madison Square Garden where she was just front in the middle. It was like the 1960s in all its glory. She's in this beautiful gown. Her hair's in the 1960s style. And I mean, that's another thing I like about the movie is I love that time period, the 50s and the 60s. The costumes were excellent.
They were.
A lot of cool colors. And of course, the cars are all pretty cool. And then you get into the 70s and you got all that 70s clothing. But that moment at Madison Square Garden was, I got chills too. That was pretty cool. But I agree with you. There was just a lot of spots.
Yeah. I don't know. I wish we would have gotten someone other than Marlon Wayans. I did not like watching him try to act.
No.
Also, Martin Luther King plays a large role in this movie.
Yeah.
I would have loved if they tried to find anyone that looked marginally like Martin Luther King Jr.
I
You
agree.
had to tell me that man was Martin Luther King.
Right. But his voice sounded like Martin Luther King.
Well, he did, yes. But I saw him. We passed by at one point, and then later on, and it's like Martin's here, and then he gets up on Martin Luther King. I was like, okay. I wouldn't have picked that.
And they kind of glossed over that whole period of her life too, where she was very involved in the civil rights movement. And I mean, you can only put so much in a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah.
And
I think they could have reallocated some resources, though.
Yeah.
I think they could have fleshed out some more of these characters. I would have loved a little bit more of her and her sisters and her brother.
Yes.
Because I thought that was a strength of the movie.
Yeah.
I would just loved a little more of that.
When they were showing him create the one song it's a big hit for her that her sister wrote, and they were creating that in the studio, and the sound of their voices together. I know those folks aren't really related, but boy, was that beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That gave me chills too.
What did you end up giving Respect?
Well, I actually gave it a 3.5 again, and this time I'd probably lean a little bit towards a heavy 3.5, just because I think if you're an Aretha Franklin fan, if you love soul music, you're probably gonna watch this movie a couple of times just because of the music. And it's probably one of those things that's gonna be on Netflix for years and people will watch it. But as far as the storytelling and the movie making, probably less than a 3.5.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I landed. I gave it 3 stars because I felt like it was it followed the formula of the music biopic.
Yeah.
I love Aretha. I enjoyed a lot of the performances. But it didn't stand out to me as like one of the great music biopics.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable, and I did have some moments where I got the chills. So that's worth something.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of these films are in theaters right now for you to check out. For our streaming spotlight, though, we turn to Netflix for the newest movie called Beckett from director Ferdinando Cito Filomarino. This movie stars John David Washington as the titular character of Beckett. He is an American tourist in Greece with his wife, April, played by Alicia Vikander. They are traveling around Greece, and very early on in the movie, they're involved in a tragic car accident in which his wife, April, passes away. The accident involves their vehicle skidding down a mountain and landing into this abandoned building where Beckett briefly sees some people in this seemingly abandoned building. And this, as he awakens in the hospital, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of grief. He's instantly besieged by people whose true motivations aren't always what they present.
They're bad guys.
Bad guys. So he's trying to unravel the mystery of who these people are that he saw, and also he's kind of starting a lightning storm of drama and political fury in Greece.
Messing up the whole political process there.
And he's kind of figuring out no one is as they seem. I think one of the good things about this is John David Washington plays this character as an everyman, really just a guy who is stumbling around in this foreign land, thinking that he can do the right thing, that it's possible for him to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And finding out that's not so easy because there's a lot of forces at work here. And I think that's where John David Washington excels, kind of where his dad always did too, of just playing a guy who feels genuine. He plays this grief-stricken man. He's trying to do what's right and kind of maybe be a hero along the way. And he's going against a lot of major players who simply want
a lot
Beckett
of bad guys
gone.
And it's amazing how well he does against all of those bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that he picks up a lot of injuries along the way. He's not just flawless along the way. I mean, this guy gets shot multiple times.
But he overpowers a lot of people who are probably trained killers
a
couple of times. And you know, John David Washington is not, he's not this buff muscle
he's
man.
not The Rock.
He's just a regular guy, like you said, and he does a great job at that. But sometimes I found it hard to believe that he got out of some of the pickles that he got out of.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoy these political thrillers like this for the most part. Your clear and present dangers and things like that. Like, that's a genre that I really enjoy. And there was a lot about this that I did enjoy, but there was also, I felt like the writing on this one it stumbled at points.
I agree.
I had a hard time, and I felt like they brought in this whole idea with this political activist movement coming in, the political revolution in Greece.
I got
is
lost
like
in all that.
A B plot at some point in the movie that did not pay off for me, and I felt like it just convoluted things.
I kind of just ignored that because it didn't really mean that much.
Because it felt like they didn't care about that as much. They introduced it, and they have Vicky Krieps, who's a great actress, as like the leader of that movement. She's kind of helping him, but then she kind of just disappears.
She's just like in the background.
But then it comes up huge in the third act, and I'm like, was I supposed to care about this stuff?
Right.
Because you guys didn't really. I don't know. I think there was a lot of issues. It was real rocky in the middle there.
I agree. I think the thing they did best with this movie, the director did best with this, and that plays to John David Washington's strength, is he's good at those silent moments.
Sure.
Those moments where, in the dialogue, there's not a heck of a lot of dialogue. Yeah. He plays those moments well, and he can carry those moments, and I think they did well with that, and building the suspense, because that's what's nice about this. So you never know who to trust, and you probably shouldn't trust anybody in this. And surprisingly, the only people who ever help him are people that are just regular people.
Yeah.
It's not any of the authorities, so to speak. Now, I don't want to ruin it for people, but, it seems like the regular people who just kind of, out of the goodness of their hearts, sometimes I'm like, wow, why would you help this guy?
That's what I thought, too. There's a couple of moments where it's like, no, you walk away from that guy.
Right. He's like looking at your car. He's going to steal your car. He's going to take,
that guy's
all
bringing
of that.
trouble with him.
Right.
Yeah.
So that there was, you have to suspend disbelief when you watch movies like this, which I did. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed the movie like you. I enjoy that thriller aspect of it, but it kind of ended up like I thought it was going to end up.
Yeah. I think they did a good enough job of balancing the action with the intrigue.
Yeah.
It wasn't, an amazing film. I do think John David Washington, like film after film that I see him in, I see him getting better. I mean, he's only been acting for a few years.
Yeah,
I'm watching him hit marks in his career. I'm like, well, that's a nice step. You made an interesting choice with this character, and I'm enjoying watching him.
Yeah, he made it worth watching, I thought.
Yeah.
He was that movie, so to speak.
He really
was.
was.
You're just following him through the whole movie.
Because, I really enjoy Alicia Vikander, and she was part of the reason I watched this, too, is because I really like her as an actress, and I thought they had an interesting chemistry as a husband and wife, but it was short. Very short moments of it, and it's like, wow, she's gone.
That was very real, though. Their interaction was very real. I felt like, boy, they didn't. It almost was like they ad-libbed that scene.
Yeah.
The scenes together. It wasn't like great dialogue, but it was real. It's kind of the stuff you and your wife might talk about, or you and your husband, and you're just together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your score for Beckett, sir?
I gave it a 3. I gave Beckett a 3 because, again, I thought it didn't really hold together as well as I thought it could, and there was some moments that were just unbelievable to me, but it's worth seeing. I think it's one of those movies that you should go or watch at home.
Yeah, it's sitting there on Netflix for you. I believe I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Is that what it says? Yeah. Oh, it says 3 stars, so I'll give it 3 stars. I never remember what my scores are.
I'm with you.
3 stars sounds fair. I'm with you on that. So we do recommend it. Go check it out if you have the time. Now for our movie throwback, sir, you chose a film for us.
I did.
What are we talking about this week?
So we are talking about 1968's Bullitt, and it's kind of fitting that we're doing Bullitt because it's one of, if you're a Steve McQueen fan, it's one of his best-known movies, and the Mustang, that is the car he drives, the 1968 GT Mustang, in that famous chase scene.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that has been a hot car over the last 10 years. They kind of brought that car back over the last few years because of the popularity of this movie. But this movie is really, it's a great movie, but it's really all about the car scene. It's about the car chase more than anything else. And
phenomenal.
We're watching it right here. It's one of the most iconic scenes of any movie. The movie is actually about Frank Bullitt. He's a detective in San Francisco, and he is charged by his boss, and actually the senator, Walter Chalmers, who is played by Robert Vaughn very well. He does a great job.
Oh, he's such a dirtbag.
He's a great dirtbag.
Oh man, he's such a villain.
He sets the bar for dirtbag senators, right? And he charges him to watch this guy named Johnny Ross, who is supposed to he's supposed to do some testimony in a hearing and
just keep track of him.
Yeah, help him. He's supposed to help him indict a mob boss who is Johnny Ross's brother. So Frank Bullitt and the San Francisco police are charged with protecting this guy in a hotel room, and then from there things go bad because the mob's involved and they get after this guy, and then Frank Bullitt is in trouble. He's always in trouble, not only with the senator, he's in trouble with his boss, Captain Bennett, who's played by Simon Oakland. So many of these people you see in cop movies and cop TV shows over the 70s.
Look at that chase.
Yeah, the chase is awesome. But again, that's what this movie is about. It's a car chase, and it lasts over 10 minutes.
Oh, it's great. And it's shot like guerrilla style.
Oh, it is.
I mean, the stories behind how they shot this, and it's like, well, we didn't exactly get permits.
No.
We just went on the streets. The streets of San Francisco become a character in that chase scene.
It took them, I think, 2 weeks to shoot that chase scene, and it's a 10-minute piece of the movie, and it really makes the movie rock.
And Steve McQueen, very proud. He wanted people to know I'm the guy in the car. So you read things like he was leaning kind of real close to the window and make sure you get a shot of my face for this. I'm driving this car.
Right, and production-wise, they had cameras in the car, probably one of the first times they did that for car chases. And, every car chase after that for 10 years kind of played off of that. And there was no soundtrack. It was just was all car sounds.
A lot of tidbits in here if you watch it. How many times does a hubcap come off? How many times do they pass that same VW Beetle?
Yeah, that's right. There's that green one, right?
They pass that green one so many times.
Yeah, I think it's 5 hubcaps.
Yeah, it's great. It's I'm a big Steve McQueen guy. This is one of my favorites.
Me too. The soundtrack's awesome too.
Good stuff. All right, let's take a moment here to take a look ahead at what is coming soon. The weekend of, I believe this is September 2nd, maybe. I should have wrote that down. We are going to have Candyman, which is a remake of the 1992 classic. This one is written by Jordan Peele. We also have streaming. We have a film called Vacation Friends, which is a comedy adventure about 2 couples who meet up on vacation, and things get awkward when they get home from vacation. This stars John Cena and Lil Rel Howery, among others. And then we have He's All That, which is a remake of the 1999 film She's All That.
Wow.
This time it's a gender swap starring Rachel Lee Cook and Matthew Lillard and Tanner Buchanan and Addison Rae. That's all that's going to be happening that week. Boy, you don't want to miss that. Before we move any further, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters. Thank you for sponsoring this program and always being so supportive with this show. We do appreciate that. Sir, I want to thank you again for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was a real joy to finally have you on. Hopefully this is just the first of many times.
I'd love to do it again. It's great to see some movies. And you know what? It's hard work.
Yeah, it's hard work watching all those movies.
It is.
Tell my wife
it's like
that.
doing a book report.
She thinks I'm just sitting there doing nothing.
No, it's hard.
It's real stuff.
Work.
I appreciate that. Next week, I am going to be joined once again by Steve Sabatke as we talk about films such as Reminiscence, The Protege, Sweet Girl, and Annette, a film that I'm very much looking forward to. But until that time, I'm Jamison.
I'm Dan.
There you go. Thanks for watching.